The desperate transmission. The Helios Voyager groaned beneath Captain Nikolai Reeves' feet, the sound of buckling metal and failing systems echoing through the command deck like a death rattle. Emergency lights cast everything in a bloody crimson glow, and the recycled air tasted of ozone and fear. "Status report," Reeves demanded, his weathered face illuminated by the flickering console before him. First Officer Kayla Sho looked up from her station, the shadows beneath her eyes evidence of 3 sleepless cycles. Life support functioning at 43% capacity. Propulsion systems offline. Hull integrity compromised in sections 12 through 17. And the crew. For confirmed casualties from the initial impact. 23 injured in medical bay. Everyone else is at emergency stations. Her voice remained steady, but Reeves had served with Zhou long enough to recognize the strain beneath her professional veneer. The Helios Voyager had been charting the edges of the Cygnus void when something, not a meteor, not a solar flare, something else entirely, had struck them with impossible precision. Now they drifted through uncharted space, systems failing one by one like dominoes. At the communications array, Lieutenant Talia Voss worked feverishly, her dark fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Captain, I've been scanning all frequencies. There's something out there." Reeves moved to her station. "Alliance outpost?" "No, sir. It's not human in origin. Some kind of automated beacon, broadcasting on frequencies I've never seen before." She pulled up a visualization of the signal pulsing, geometric patterns that seemed to shift as they watched. "It's everywhere out here, like a net. Can you translate it?" "The AI is trying, but—" She hesitated. "Sir, I think it's a warning." Before Reeves could respond, Chief Engineer Marcus Jahan burst onto the bridge, his uniform singed and face streaked with conductive gel. "Captain, we've lost the main reactor. Backup power will last 26 hours, maximum." "Options, Jahan." The engineer's expression was grim. "Without external assistance? None that keep us alive longer than 2 days." The command deck fell silent, the weight of their situation crushing down on every soul present. 26 hours of power. 2 days of breathable air. No propulsion. No known outposts within range. "Lieutenant Voss," Reeves said finally, "prepare a distress signal. Full spectrum broadcast." Voss looked up, her eyes reflecting the crimson emergency lights. "Sir, about that beacon, the translation algorithm just completed its first pass. It's telling ships to remain silent. To not transmit anything in this sector." "Why?" Zhou asked. "Unknown. But the warning is repeated in what appears to be 17 different linguistic structures. Whatever it is, someone wanted to make absolutely certain it was understood." Reeves stared at the visualization of the alien signal, its geometric patterns pulsing like a heartbeat. Then he looked around at his crew, the best and brightest humanity had to offer, now trapped in a failing vessel in uncharted space. "We have no choice," he said finally. "Broadcast the distress signal." Voss hesitated for only a moment before her fingers resumed their dance across the interface. "Signal prepared. Broadcasting on all frequencies." The message went out, a desperate cry into the void, a plea for salvation from anyone who might be listening. For several minutes, nothing changed. The ship continued its slow death, systems failing one by one. Then, without warning, every screen on the command deck went black. The emergency lights flickered once, twice, then stabilized. A cold sensation swept through the room, like the absence of heat rather than true cold. "Did we lose power?" Reeves demanded. Jahan checked his diagnostic pad. "No, systems they're operational again. Power levels stabilizing. But I didn't do anything." Before anyone could respond, a figure stood at the center of the command deck. No one had seen it appear. There had been no shimmer of a teleport, no opening door, no flash of light. One moment the space was empty, the next it was occupied by a being that resembled a human in only the most basic sense. It stood nearly 7 feet tall, with limbs too long and too thin to be natural. Its skin was alabaster white, with faint luminescent patterns shifting beneath the surface like the beacon they detected. It wore what appeared to be a robe of material that absorbed rather than reflected light, creating a void in human-shaped form. Its eyes were its most striking feature, completely black, without iris or sclera, yet somehow conveying an ancient intelligence. "Who the hell are you?" Reeves demanded, instinctively reaching for the weapon at his hip. The figure raised a 6-fingered hand. That would be ineffective, Captain Nikolai Reeves of the human vessel Helios Voyager. Its voice was strange, not emanating from its mouth, but seeming to originate from the air around them, as if the atmosphere itself had decided to speak. "You know who we are," Reeves said, not a question but a statement. "I know what you are," the entity corrected. "You are the latest in a long procession of species to ignore warnings meant to protect you from yourselves." Joe stepped forward. "Our ship is damaged. We're stranded. We had no choice but to send a distress signal." "There is always a choice, Kayla Joe. Your kind simply excels at convincing yourselves otherwise when the alternatives are inconvenient." The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop further. Screens flickered back to life, displaying not their usual readouts, but images of Earth, of human colonies, of wars and celebrations, and everyday life. "What is this?" Reeves demanded. "What do you want?" The entity tilted its head at an unnatural angle. "I am what answers when desperate signals are sent in protected space. I am what evaluates whether the violation was justified, whether the species in question deserves continuance." "Continuance?" Jahan repeated, his voice barely a whisper. "You may address me as the arbiter. I am neither your enemy nor your savior. I am your judge." Reeves straightened his spine, summoning the authority that had earned him command of humanity's most advanced exploration vessel. "We don't recognize your jurisdiction. We're an exploration ship from the Earth Alliance, operating under." "Your political structures are irrelevant," the arbiter interrupted. "This sector was sealed with warnings in languages both extinct and extant. The beacon you detected has stood for over 30,000 of your years, placed here after the last species that required judgment proved unworthy." The implications of those words settled over the command deck like a shroud. "You're saying you eliminated an entire species?" Voss asked, her voice shaking. "No, Lieutenant Talia Voss. They eliminated themselves. I merely confirmed their verdict." The arbiter moved across the deck without seeming to take steps, suddenly standing before the main view screen. "Your distress signal has been received, but the response shall not be rescue. It shall be retribution, unless you prove yourselves worthy of exception." The screens around the command deck shifted again, now showing images of environmental destruction on Earth, of colonial wars, of resource extraction operations on dozens of worlds. "Your kind spreads like a virus, Captain. You consume and move on. You destroy what you do not understand. You ignore warnings when they contradict your desires." "That's not all we are," Reeves protested. "Those images are selective. We also build, create, preserve it. All species create, Captain. Few destroy with such enthusiasm." The arbiter raised its hand, and the failing systems of the Helios Voyager suddenly hummed back to full power. Lights brightened, air circulation resumed its normal rhythm, and the red emergency glow faded to standard illumination. "Your vessel has been restored," the arbiter announced. "This is not mercy. This is procedure. Judgment cannot be rendered against the dying, for desperation corrupts truth." "What exactly are you judging us for?" Joe asked. "Not merely your actions here, First Officer Joe. Your signal breached the quarantine, but that alone would not warrant intervention. It is what your signal contained, the entirety of your species' history, culture, achievements, and atrocities embedded in your standardized distress protocols." Reeves glanced at Voss, who nodded confirmation. "Alliance distress signals contain compressed cultural and linguistic data packages to facilitate communication with any potential rescuers. You have inadvertently submitted yourselves for comprehensive evaluation," the arbiter continued. "And now, evaluation has begun." The air shimmered around the entity, and images began to form in the space between it and the crew. Holographic representations of Earth cities, space stations, colony worlds. "Your species stands at a crossroads, Captain Reeves. Your signal has opened a door that cannot be closed by your hand alone. The judgment will proceed. Whether retribution follows depends entirely on what I discover." The arbiter's black eyes seemed to expand, becoming pools of infinite darkness. "Prepare yourselves. The testing begins now." With those words, the command deck of the Helios Voyager transformed. The familiar consoles and stations remained, but beyond them, the walls appeared to dissolve, revealing a vast, star-filled void that couldn't possibly exist within the confines of the ship. In that moment, Captain Nikolai Reeves understood with perfect clarity. Their desperate signal hadn't summoned help. It had summoned something far more dangerous, a reckoning. The reckoning. The stars beyond the command deck wall shifted, coalescing into images of Earth history that flowed like liquid memory. Captain Reeves watched as millennia compressed into moments, human civilization rising, falling, evolving, wars giving way to peace, giving way to new conflicts in an endless cycle. Fascinating, the Arbiter spoke, its voice resonating from everywhere and nowhere. Your species harbors remarkable contradictions. Jahan edged closer to Reeves, speaking in a whisper. Captain, I've run diagnostics. Whatever this entity is, it's interfaced directly with our primary systems. It's reading our entire database. Can we cut it off? Reeves asked. I wouldn't recommend it, Joe interjected. Look. She gestured toward the view screens, which now displayed the Helios Voyager from external perspective, a damaged vessel surrounded by an energy field that pulsed with the same geometric patterns as the warning beacon. We're contained, Joe said. Completely. The Arbiter moved across the command deck, stopping before Dr. Octavia Reynolds, the ship's xenobiologist who had remained silent until now. Your thoughts are distinctive, Dr. Reynolds. You question whether I am truly alien or merely an advanced defense system left by precursor species. Reynolds straightened, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding fear. Am I wrong to question? No. The entity's black eyes seemed to ripple. Curiosity is among your kind's more redeeming qualities. Yet it is also what brings you to the edge of elimination. The cosmic display around them shifted again, showing human exploration vessels spreading across the stars, terraforming equipment reshaping worlds, mining operations extracting resources from pristine environments. Your hunger is insatiable, the Arbiter continued. You consume worlds as others consume meals. Reeves stepped forward. We seek to survive, to explore, to understand. Is that so different from any intelligent species? The difference lies not in desire but in restraint, Captain. The Arbiter gestured, and the images changed to show extinct species, ecological collapses, civilizations that had vanished. These are the costs of your progress. Lieutenant Voss had been working quietly at her station, analyzing the entity's energy signature. Captain, she called, her voice low but urgent. I've found something. Historical records mention a similar encounter, the Proxima incident, 60 years ago. A research station reported contact with an entity matching this description before all communication ceased. The Arbiter turned its gaze toward her. Your information is incomplete, Lieutenant. The Proxima researchers were not eliminated. They chose silence after understanding what they had discovered. And what was that? Reeves demanded. That the cosmos has immune systems, Captain. Mechanisms that identify and neutralize existential threats. The entity's form rippled, becoming temporarily translucent. Your species has triggered such a response. The command deck fell silent, the implications of those words hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Joe spoke. You keep saying your species faces judgment, but you're only interacting with one ship. How can you judge all of humanity based on us? An insightful question, First Officer. The Arbiter's form solidified again. Your vessel serves as a focal point, but the evaluation encompasses your entire civilization. Even now, similar encounters are occurring throughout human space. 27 ships, 14 colonies, 9 research outposts, all simultaneously. Jahan paled. A coordinated attack? A comprehensive assessment, the entity corrected. You are not the first civilization to reach this threshold, nor will you be the last. Some pass. Many fail. Reeves exchanged glances with his senior staff, the weight of responsibility crushing down upon them. Somehow, their actions here would influence the judgment of all humanity. What do you want from us? Reeves asked. I require nothing. I observe. I evaluate. I determine. Determine what, exactly? Dr. Reynolds pressed. Whether humanity is a creation species or a destruction species. Whether you build more than you break. Whether your existence enriches the cosmos or diminishes it. The Arbiter raised its hand, and the command deck transformed again. This time, they found themselves standing in what appeared to be a vast chamber filled with glowing crystalline structures, each containing what looked like the ghostly image of a different alien species. The Archive of Judgment, the entity explained. Each crystal contains the complete record of a species that faced evaluation. It gestured to crystals glowing with warm blue light, past the threshold. They continued to exist. The many chose to withdraw from expansion after understanding their place in the greater order. It turned toward a much larger collection of crystals that pulsed with angry red energy. Others failed. Their legacy remains only here, as warning and memory. And how exactly is this evaluation conducted? Reeves demanded, struggling to maintain his composure in the face of such an overwhelming revelation. Through observation, interaction, and crucible, the Arbiter's form shifted, becoming more solid, more present. The first phase is complete. Now begins the crucible. Without warning, the command deck split into separate environments. Each senior officer found themselves isolated in a simulation of impossible ethical challenges. Reeves watched as his crew scattered across the deck, each locked in their own personal test, fighting battles only they could see. For Reeves himself, the scenario was brutally simple. Before him appeared a simulation of Earth and a distant human colony world. Between them, an asteroid rich with resources needed by both. The simulation showed the colony world dying without those resources, while Earth would merely suffer economic hardship. A voice echoed in his mind, "Your decision, Captain?" Across the deck, Jahan faced a different challenge, a simulation showing him the technical specifications for a weapon of unprecedented power, capable of destroying entire star systems. With the knowledge that a hostile alien force was approaching human space, Joe's test involved a first contact scenario where the alien species was clearly peaceful but occupied a world rich with materials humanity desperately needed. Voss found herself choosing between saving incomplete cultural records of an extinct alien civilization or preserving critical navigational data that would prevent human ships from being lost. Dr. Reynolds confronted a scenario where a deadly plague could be cured, but only by experimenting on sentient alien creatures without their consent. Each test probed the limits of human ethics, compassion, and wisdom. Each forced them to confront the core questions of what humanity truly valued. Hours seemed to pass, though time had no meaning in this altered state. When the simulations finally faded, the crew found themselves back on the command deck, exhausted but unchanged. The Arbiter stood in their midst, its form now pulsing with a mixture of light and darkness. "Fascinating," it said again, but this time with a different inflection. "Your responses were unexpected. Did we pass your test?" Reeves asked, his voice hoarse. "There is no passing, Captain. Only truth revealed." The entity moved around the command deck, studying each crew member in turn. "Your species contains multitudes, violence and compassion, greed and sacrifice, arrogance and humility. That's what it means to be human," Dr. Reynolds said. "We contain contradictions." "Indeed. And therein lies both your greatest strength and most profound weakness." The Arbiter's form began to expand, filling the command deck with luminescent energy. Most species lean definitively toward creation or destruction. Yours balances precariously between. The ship's systems suddenly surge with power, consoles lighting up with reports from across the vessel. Hull breaches sealing themselves. Damaged sections regenerating. But beyond these miracles, something else was happening. The ship's database was being flooded with information. "What are you doing?" Reeves demanded. "Providing context," the Arbiter replied. "Knowledge that may shift your balance." Lieutenant Voss gasped as she reviewed incoming data. "Captain, this is incredible. Star charts of regions we've never mapped. Historical records of civilizations we've never encountered. Scientific principles we haven't discovered yet. Why would you give us this?" Joe asked, suspicious. "Because knowledge without wisdom leads to destruction. Your species has demonstrated potential for wisdom, but lacks sufficient knowledge to apply it properly." The Arbiter's form began to fade. "This is not absolution, Captain Reeves. It is opportunity." "Wait," Reeves called out. "What's your verdict? Does humanity pass your judgment or not?" The entity paused, its form half substantial. "The judgment is suspended, not concluded. You have demonstrated sufficient potential to warrant further observation. The knowledge I have provided carries responsibility. How you use it will determine humanity's ultimate verdict." "So we're still being tested," Jahan muttered. "Existence is the test, Engineer Jahan," the Arbiter responded. "I have removed the quarantine from this sector. Your distress signal has been relayed to your alliance. Rescue vessels approach." The energy field surrounding the Helios Voyager dissolved, and their sensors immediately detected approaching ships. "Remember, Captain," the Arbiter said, its voice growing fainter as its form dissipated, "retribution was not averted, merely postponed. How humanity proceeds with its new knowledge will determine whether your next encounter with my kind brings destruction or elevation." With those words, the entity vanished completely, leaving the command deck in silence broken only by the soft beeping of consoles and the approaching communication signals from Alliance rescue vessels. Captain Nikolai Reeves stared at the space where the Arbiter had been, then turned to his crew, each of them forever changed by what they had experienced. "Send acknowledgement to the rescue fleet," he ordered Voss, his voice steady despite everything. "And prepare a complete report for Alliance Command. They need to understand what happened here." "Sir," Joe asked quietly, "what exactly did happen here?" Reeves looked at the vast store of new data flowing through their systems, knowledge that could transform humanity's future, and at the faces of his crew, who had stood at the precipice of judgment and emerged neither condemned nor absolved. "We sent out a signal in desperation," he answered. "And instead of the rescue we wanted, we received the retribution we needed, a chance to see ourselves as we truly are, and the opportunity to become something better." As Alliance ships appeared on their view screens, Reeves understood that their real mission was just beginning. The signal had gone out, and something had answered, not with destruction, but with a challenge that would define humanity's place among the stars.